Hey, what's up, guys? So we're gonna be going over a crazy video today. I'm not gonna lie. So we're going over why Donald Trump refusing to release the Epstein files. 60 minutes, I'll show you. All right, you know what time it is. Time for the spooks to get scared and see what's going on. As someone who has zero political allegiance and who is simply a harbinger of truth, this is simply content and me hoping that this video is objective and it doesn't need to be critical. It doesn't need to provide its biased take, but it needs to have some substance. So these files do need to get released if we're being honest. Also, so let's see what they got cooking.
Get there, and I'm all sweaty in running shorts. Donald Trump walks in, hovering and smirking like a Cheshire grin. The president and the pedophile.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
He's been dead for 6 years.
Trump supporters see Jeffrey Epstein as the devil.
But billionaire Jeffrey Epstein
We need to release the Epstein list.
I call it the Epstein hoax.
That comment from JD is going to probably bite them.
continues to haunt Donald Trump.
Trump really seems to be hiding something.
That's next on 60 Minutes. No matter the ultimate outcome of Donald Trump's face-to-face dialogue with Vladimir Putin in Alaska,
Which happened. By the time you're watching this video, it happened.
getting the meeting to happen is a significant achievement for the US president. It's clear Trump is not without talents. On his home front, he's been particularly adept in his ability to endure scandal. In the last 5 years, the president's faced 91 felony counts, 4 criminal indictments, 2 impeachment trials, and in a civil case, has been found liable for sexual abuse. Yet last November, a majority of Americans still
insane.
voted for him to lead them.
That's crazy.
Now, though, there are chinks in Trump's armour. The reason is his bumpy handling.
I wouldn't say chinks. Those cases and those trials, what was the conclusion? Some convicted for some, others were tossed. The abuse charges were dismissed, or it's really complicated. Some went away, some extended or dismissed entirely, some were actual convictions, and then the impeachment trials, I think they proceeded through. So that might still be like a continuing thing. So we'll see where that goes.
Of the so-called Epstein files, evidence that may or may not exist about the powerful connections of America's most despised pedophile, the now dead billionaire Jeffrey Epstein.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
It's the question that has consumed Washington, D.C. and the world for weeks. Just what was Donald Trump's relationship with the disgraced Jeffrey Epstein? And how much does the president know about the depraved world created by the pedophile financier?
Are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
A billionaire accused of child sex trafficking.
Yes.
Epstein was connected to some of the most powerful people in the world. And despite their friendship, the president has long positioned himself as the man capable of exposing Jeffrey Epstein's darkest secrets.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
But a few weeks ago, after
That clip was edited. He then said and then I would see it was basically he went back on it maybe not. It wasn't. The clip was fine for, I guess, during the campaign, but that just turned out to not be the case. So
months of teasing a release of the case files, the Trump administration unexpectedly backflipped.
A review from the Justice Department and FBI did not find any evidence that notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein kept a so-called client list.
The fallout has spiraled into a full-blown political scandal that Donald Trump, for once, can't seem to shake. At the heart of it is the friendship between the president and the pedophile. Is the president lying?
Oh, my heavens, yes. Yes, he's lying. Yes.
Someone said something interesting. They said, what if we just believe the victims for once? You know, like, it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what position of power you're in. Obviously, you know one's above the law, but yeah, I tend to agree with that. It's like there's just too many victims. After a while, it's like, okay, let's just believe it's not just like a collusion of just like targeting. Let's just believe victims in general, please. That would be nice.
Is a long way from Washington, D.C. It's where Maria Farmer has built a quiet life for herself after she was abused by Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. But as scandal has engulfed the White House, she can no longer stay silent about President Trump's handling of the Epstein files.
It's one of the most egregious acts of injustice I've ever witnessed. It feels like Watergate times like a billion because it involves children. And I think that what he's doing is trying to cover up his association or affiliation with these people.
Since becoming president, Donald Trump has done everything in his power to distance himself from the billionaire financier and his vile crimes.
Which that's not going to work because, see, it's like it's known. It's just not believable by maybe the ones on his base or his strongest supporters, but that's like, when you lay out their history, even on like a minimal level, it's like, okay, a friend in any capacity for like a decade is fine, but best friend by some, multiple like trips, that's, now we're starting to get into territories of, okay, you can't deny or diminish like whatever relationship that was. You just can't.
I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan.
But for Maria, there can be no doubting the depth of their relationship.
Exactly.
Epstein said he was his best friend. He just said, that's my best friend.
Maria was in her early 20s when she was hired and abused by Jeffrey Epstein in the mid-1990s. During that time, she witnessed firsthand how close her boss was to Donald Trump.
Epstein said when Trump and his wife divorced, Ivana, he said, I inherited Trump and Ghislaine inherited Ivana. And so you'll see Ivana at the house a lot and you'll see Trump at the offices, but the twain will never cross. They'll never meet.
It was in Epstein's Manhattan office that Maria claims she had a disturbing encounter with the now president.
First time I met him was the night before I started my job. And Epstein said, I need you to come up to the offices. And I was like, it's 9 o'clock at night, you know? And I guess I'll just run up there. And he said, okay. So I get there and I'm all sweaty in running shorts. Donald Trump walks in. And he was really strange, and he stood, you know, hovering and smirking, like all-knowing, you know, like omniscient grin, like a Cheshire grin. So I made like, I don't know, it was just an instinct. I made the ugliest face I could think of. And Epstein thought it was adorable. He walked out and he goes, oh, no, Maria, no, she's not here for you. Just like that, he emphasized, she's not here for you. He goes, come with me. And he escorts Trump. So here's Epstein's part. He escorts Trump into this other room. And Trump utters, under his breath, he mutters, oh, I thought she was 16. And I thought that was just really weird. Like, it was beyond locker room talk.
Maria says she never saw Trump behave inappropriately, and the White House has contested her version of events. insisting the president never visited Epstein's offices. So when the White House says Donald Trump was never at Jeffrey Epstein's offices, is the president lying?
Oh, my heavens, yes. Yes, he's lying. Yes.
The friendship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein is well documented.
Yeah.
For nearly 2 decades, they were well known as men about town. One, a notorious property developer, the other, a wealthy financier. They were often seen together at parties and events from New York to Florida. Trump was a passenger on Epstein's private jet, both alone and with his family.
That's crazy.
Epstein was even a guest at Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. And in 2002, he described Jeffrey Epstein as a terrific guy, telling a journalist that his friend was a lot of fun to be with and that he liked beautiful women, many on the younger side.
Which, it's just like, okay. I mean, you gotta get, of course they'll deny, like, I said it in this, but it's like, bro. What is all this for? Like, the first 2 sentences was enough. You get to the third sentence, it's like, okay. All right.
But behind the glamorous facade, Jeffrey Epstein was a monster. By 2006, he had been exposed as a pedophile.
Yes, ma'am.
Convicted of child sex trafficking. But it would be years before the true extent of his depravity would be revealed. By then, Donald Trump says he had cut him off.
For years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. Again, he stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place.
Again, no offense, but see, that's how you know a story's being like changed. So you're obviously there's more clips than just this, but so it's just the fact that he stole your clients. If without context, that's already BS, but with context, it's like, okay, now that's just a weird play because, like, really stealing that's it? That's the only reason you would? No. Okay, go into detail, explain. But of course you can't.
Persona non grata.
Yeah.
I threw him out.
However the friendship soured, it's now under renewed scrutiny after President Trump backflipped on an election promise to release the so-called Epstein files. What is it about the Epstein case, these promised files, that's so alluring, so fascinating to Trump's followers and his detractors?
There were a lot of unanswered questions. How did he make so much money? Why were all of these influential people, from Bill Gates to Bill Clinton to Donald Trump, why did they all hang out with him? What exactly was he up to? And you have these real legitimate victims.
Yep.
Will Summer is a seasoned political reporter and author. He says this issue has captivated Trump's Make America Great Again movement like no other.
I mean, Trump supporters see Jeffrey Epstein as the devil. I mean, they see him as an incredibly evil figure. And to be fair, I mean, I think they're correct. But they also see him as perhaps as someone who was the key to this larger network. This guy who was, in their belief, providing young girls to world elites.
Many believe the names of who was in that network lie within the Epstein files. More than 300 gig.
There's been many like files leaked and lists online. What people were saying was like the names were not the most interesting part. It was who they connected to and the whys. Which I think it's the victims first, then why, and then what's the punishment? Like, are we gonna get some form of like actual justice, or not just everyone? Just it should be justice should be simple in the greatest country on earth allegedly, but it is complicated, I guess.
gigabytes of data and physical evidence of the vile crimes committed against more than 1,000 girls and young women. Some, like the flight logs from his private plane, dubbed the Lolita Express, have already been made public, but any kind of client list remains elusive. Earlier this year, though, the president was told his name appears in the files several times. It's not clear in what capacity, but the revelation has added to the intrigue about why he won't make them public. In a sense, is that part of why this has become such a big problem for Trump? Because on one hand, his supporters who see Jeffrey Epstein as the devil, see Trump as the man who's going to bring it all to light and expose it all and bring it all down. But then on the other hand, he's clearly involved.
It's something that's very hard for them to figure out. And I think this is why this moment has been so challenging for Trump, because they were able to ignore, decades old video footage. But now that you have this more information about their relationship coming to light, and then the biggest obstacle, which is that Trump really seems to be hiding something. And so as a result, people, even Trump supporters, are starting to say, geez, this is really suspicious.
Maria Farmer is certainly suspicious, not just because of her experience with the now president, but because she alerted authorities years ago.
I'm curious, is this video
She was the
like
first
this
of
for
Jeffrey
everybody?
Epstein's victims to sound the alarm, contacting the FBI in 1996 and documenting it in her diary at the time.
And I just remember trying to explain to this man at the FBI that children are in severe danger. And so I told him, I said, listen, I'm calling to report an international pedophile and child porn ring. This is a federal crime.
And it wasn't only Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell she mentioned.
I said, and there's this businessman. I said, he's kind of cheesy. And I said, I can't remember if I described him as a game show host or used car salesman or something like that. But I said, he's a prominent businessman. He's a New York fixture. And they said, oh, Donald Trump. The FBI guessed based on that brief description that I was discussing Donald Trump.
Her complaint wasn't taken seriously then or in 2006 when she repeated her allegations to federal authorities who were finally investigating Jeffrey Epstein. So when President Trump vowed to get to the bottom of the Epstein saga, Maria was cynical.
I reported him because I knew he was part of this gang. I didn't know on what level. I just knew that he was very much a part of it.
And as you'll see, the president's reluctance to be transparent has, for the first time, turned his supporters against him.
No, it's not the first time. Let's just say it should make things obvious, but there were other things that just didn't play out well, and you just it didn't matter if you voted for or against him. You just what? This is this just doesn't turn out the way you think. So, but then there was another thing that people say when a president is in their second term. Will they actually care? Do they put in the effort to be transparent? Is it all just to get elected a second time? Who knows?
I expected files to be released and people that deserve to be held accountable.
In Washington, D.C., political scandals come and go, and no one's better at shaking them off than President Trump. But the case of the Epstein files has stuck like mud. Is this the biggest crisis of the Trump administration so far?
It is the biggest crisis, yes. I would say that the Trump administration is really out of step here and they don't know what to do.
Political reporter and author Will Sommer has watched the president try unsuccessfully to contain the Epstein saga. Will says it's a mess of Trump's own making after Republicans politicised the story.
I mean, Epstein was a huge issue. I mean, it was one of the major issues of the Trump campaign. I mean, they would go on these podcasts, on TV shows, and so people bring it up a lot. And they say, you know, are you going to be the one who finally figures out what happened to Epstein? How did he die? Who was he associated with? I think a lot of people really believe Trump would do it. So he's kind of hoisted on his own petard here. I mean, he revved up this base, and now when they're asking for what he promised them, he's refusing to deliver.
Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein is dead.
When Jeffrey Epstein's death in 2019 was ruled a suicide by a New York medical examiner, almost immediately, President Trump publicly latched on to conspiracy theories that it was part of a cover-up to protect his client list.
There's certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there, because that was a weird situation.
Who was president when that happened?
And the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera.
Trump really is sort of the conspiracy theorist in chief in the United States. I mean, he is a guy who built his political career on conspiracy theories and just sort of lies more broadly. A lot of his appeal is based on the idea that he builds himself up as this guy who will protect you, not just from Democrats or people whose policies you don't like, but from these really nefarious, evil forces.
And then the question you have to ask is, did Bill Clinton go to the island? Because Epstein had an island. That was not...
A theme you'll see of all the big talk and the hesitation is mutually assured destruction, but it's more than that. It's the people who have access to that mutually assured destruction, like losing control, but that's a whole different topic.
Not a good place, as I understand, because I was never there.
Releasing the
which is, again, that'll be another thing. The not being on the island is just that was a clever little way of negating the issue. People have passed and move on from that. Thank goodness they have, because of course you weren't there. But that doesn't explain what the investigation, what the common person is trying to understand from the situation. So makes you look more suspect.
Files, and in doing so, bringing down the so-called Washington elites was a Trump presidential campaign promise.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Repeated by the right-wing echo chamber.
Release the list. Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
So when the administration changed course last month,
I call it the Epstein hoax,
announcing there was no client list, no evidence of blackmail, and nothing to see, the reaction from the Make America Great Again movement was swift and furious.
I can't reconcile this Donald Trump with the Trump that we're seeing right now, the Trump that is gaslighting the public right now. The Epstein scandal is definitely terminal cancer to Trump's MAGA movement.
You're telling me there's no list after you told me there was a list?
Where's the Epstein files? Boo, can't find them. Don't exist. Like, they can get away with shit, man.
I have 3 of my MAGA hats here today, and we're gonna burn them.
Have you been surprised by the extent of the backlash from Donald Trump's support base? A lot of people who voted for him have now turned against him.
I think that comes certainly when you make statements and promises and then you walk it back.
Theresa Helm voted for President Trump in last year's election because she believed he would expose Epstein's wider network.
I expected files to be released and people that deserve to be held accountable.
And she
aren't we all shocked?
Has more reason than most to feel betrayed by the president's lack of action. In 2002, while studying at a massage college in Los Angeles, then 22-year-old Theresa was lured into Jeffrey Epstein's dark orbit when she went for a job interview.
He was a very charismatic man. He was very friendly to start. I felt good about being there. I felt good about this opportunity. Then he said, let's go to my office. That's when everything changed and his demeanor changed.
It was there, Teresa says, Epstein requested a massage.
Literally within seconds, everything shifted from what I thought was a safe interview to this is very unsafe, and this does not feel right, and this is not right, and I don't know what's happening, and I don't know what to do. Not too much longer later, I found the door and ran out of there.
Teresa says she was sexually assaulted by Epstein, but it was years before she realised she was one of hundreds of young women ensnared in his depraved world.
It was definitely systematic. Everything was pre-planned, pre-arranged, organized. I was a human baton that these women just passed along.
The Department of Justice has said there is no concrete evidence, there is no basis for investigating any third party.
Would say that.
In your experience, how is that possible?
It's impossible to do everything that they've done and harmed as many people as they have harmed without help.
Correct.
You know, they've had a lot of help. So who are they?
Do you think Trump's giving people the sense that he's not only protecting perhaps friends, predators, but also himself?
I think increasingly that is sort of the conclusion to draw. You have to start wondering, why is Trump acting so strangely about this? So you can see the administration attempts to sort of reduce the excitement.
It's not just like, recently, some other countries have just been like, you know, I don't know. Imagine if another country had blackmail on you and they use it against you, like, and you saw them acting differently, would you like question it? So something's just up. Yeah, it's just weird. Like, good sir.
Around the files. And I think a lot of that is based on the fact that Trump is in them.
So, is this the scandal that will finally stick to Teflon Trump?
This guy is just a fucking survivor.
Whatever you think of Donald Trump, there can be no denying the first 6 months of his second presidency has been productive. He's secured the border, addressed inflation, and introduced a
He has addressed not a single inflation, at least not consistently, but go on.
sprawling budget bill, overhauling tax cuts and
The budget bill is not good, but go on.
healthcare. But for weeks now,
He has not
no matter
spoken.
where he is in the world or what's on his agenda, there's a dark, uncomfortable controversy the president simply can't escape.
You know, Epstein was always a very controversial guy. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island.
It is a crisis for him because it's a crisis of credibility. It's a crisis of integrity. Donald Trump needs to be talking about legislation. He needs to be talking about policy. So anytime he's on the defense, anytime he's talking about something that he said or did that isn't about getting something done for the American people, that's a negative.
Pollster and political analyst Frank Luntz has done more focus groups with Trump voters than just about anyone in the United States. So he knows why, even in the face of scandal, Trump's base is unshakable.
His own voters aren't voting for him because of his character. His own voters aren't voting for him because he's a stand-up guy. They're voting for him because he'll bring about the change they want and they need, and frankly, they deserve. Look at it this way. He was impeached twice. He was involved in January 6th, 4 different cases, 91 felony counts, and he was still elected president. Donald Trump is the ultimate survivor, and I expect nothing different about this current situation. This guy is just a fucking survivor.
But for those who were harmed by Jeffrey Epstein, there's no forgiving or forgetting. Maria Farmer was sexually assaulted by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in 1996. She reported the pair to the FBI that same year and named Donald Trump as one of their associates. But authorities did nothing, and now she's suing the US government for failing to protect her.
I want to hold the government accountable for systemic abuse of victims and children.
Maria's attorney, Jennifer Freeman, represents several of Epstein and Maxwell's victims.
This has been one of the largest law enforcement failures in U.S. history.
Would we be sitting here today, Jennifer, having this conversation, if federal authorities had listened to Maria in 1996?
That's really the underlying sadness of this. That's the tragedy here, is no, we would not. Over 1,000 victims could have been spared. Some 30 years of abuse could have been avoided, prevented. It's tragic.
Like Maria and her lawyer, Teresa Helm is determined to see justice. Teresa was lured to Jeffrey Epstein's home by Ghislaine Maxwell in 2002 and sexually assaulted. She simply doesn't accept the assessment of US authorities that Maxwell, convicted 5 times and serving a 20-year jail term, is the only person culpable. Do you believe the names of some of the other people that helped facilitate these crimes are in those files?
I don't know exactly what these files are supposed to look like. I have no idea. But what I do know is there has to be evidence supporting their network. You don't carry out an enterprise of exploitation for decades and have no paper trail or no trail at all.
Jeffrey Epstein's secrets died with him, and Ghislaine Maxwell has repeatedly denied her crimes, refusing to reveal details of how the trafficking operation was run and who else was involved.
Not answering the real questions, but again, that's another topic that we'll probably get into maybe a few months to a few years down the line of me entering like this political era. But
with pressure building on the president to take action, he sent federal authorities to interview Maxwell at a Florida courthouse late last month.
She was asked maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody, and she didn't hold anything back.
But isn't the incentive...
Already, Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved to a minimum security prison, and she's playing the president, refusing to testify before Congress. And
so this minimum security thing is weird because I don't know if it was after it was stated that I want to verify if by any means if she's moved again or has any permissibility or just any authority to leave at any point for any reason. Okay, now you okay. The system that we think we have clearly doesn't apply to some people. Wink, wink. But this is just, it means there is no system. It means, it doesn't even mean like whatever party is in has favoritism. This is just simply another level of WTF.
Unless she's granted protection. How do you feel when you see federal authorities sent to re-interview her, that she's moved to a minimum security prison?
It's disgusting. Ghislaine is a liar and a pedophile. Who gives credence to that?
Mr. President!
There can be no doubt Trump's sloppy handling of the Epstein files and the ensuing mess has wounded him. But according to Frank Luntz's recent polling, it's not enough to permanently scar the president.
Make no mistake, Jeffrey Epstein is probably the most hated person in America next to Adolf Hitler. But that said, it's not something top of mind. It is not something that people prioritize. Is this an irritant? Absolutely.
So, and this is where I ignore them because, again, cool, great story. The moment you say children are not a top priority in terms of protecting them, in terms of making sure that, well, let's bring it to this. If they are in a state of being a victim in any case, and they are not a priority, that is what from someone from the outside would think about a voter. If I'm sorry, if you tell me your rent, your wages, your blah 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 is all well and important, and the economy and democracy and the libs or the Republicans and the rights and like you tell me all this, but children are not a priority. I truly do not want to talk to you because you're what's wrong with the world. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not even. I'm not hearing what he has to say.
Tenacious thorn in the president's side. But like so many who've supported Donald Trump, Teresa is willing him to resolve this saga.
I should have had it up here. I'm kind of
Do you
upset.
fear the president is not releasing these files in order to protect certain people?
I hope not.
Perhaps even himself.
I feel that I'm holding on to hope that we're going to get to the bottom of this. Because I'm not ready to accept that this is the end of the road and this is a case closed. I'm not ready to accept that.
On this week's 60 Minutes,
Shitty, shameful, and people and the networks and the governments involved will be brought to justice. Simple as that.